Hi, welcome to Fiberchats. My name is Irene. I'm the host here. My guest today is Nina Elliott. Hi, Nina.
Hi.
So you've been doing mostly crocheting, yarn bombing. Like, why that? Why that area of crochet?
Uh, I mean, this is like always, why yarn bombing? People always ask me that. I don't know. I guess like the way that I've conceptualized how this came to be like something that I really like to do is I moved to a small town, and I didn't know anybody. And I knew how to knit, and I had seen yarn bombing online, and it was like this nice blend between like mischievous and accessible. So like I have always appreciated street art, but I moved to this place that didn't have any street art, and I'm probably too timid to actually go out and do like spray paint on property without permission. Um, so it just seems like this nice option. You can do most of the work at home, and then it's like a way to communicate. So, I think part of it of like moving to a small town and not knowing anybody is that I was still like able to communicate with the whole town through art. So all those pieces kind of swirled around to make it to be something that's very addictive
Well,
for
have
me.
you ever gotten in trouble for that?
I haven't, no. This past week is the first time I've ever been rejected from bringing my crochet along. I did go to an NHL game, and they wouldn't let me in with my crochet, my crochet hooks. But other than that, I have, I've been asked, I think I've been asked to take things down. I put something up on a national historic site and left it. And then a few weeks later, it was mailed back to me. So I guess like the security guard there found it, found my tag, went online. I guess he must have emailed me from my address, but he mailed it back to me. So that's like, it's been like surprisingly positive when I look back on it, that like I've always been kind of nervous because I think like, ooh, this is bad.
Well, let's talk about first time. Like, what happened the first time you decided to do it?
I the first thing I did was like just wrap a tree. And that is officially yarn bombing. But very like the next thing I did was to make it was a wrap for a pole, or sorry, a horizontal pole, and I made it into a snake. So like very quickly I was interested in like either three-dimensional stuff or some image tied to it, because I think yarn bombing can be either just taking crochet or knitting and wrapping it around something, or it can be, a big cartoon, or it can be anything, right? And for me to like add those details, that's what makes it interesting for me, is because like I'm constantly able to create something new, I guess, that still communicates a different message.
How is your family reacting to you being mischievous with yarn outside?
um Very supportive. My my husband's a lawyer, so maybe that like helps me in terms of like wrapping my head around it. um he is very supportive in that like he uh, how can I explain his supportiveness? He comes with me. He'll do like any camera work if I need an extra set of hands, or I guess regularly he comes up with like ideas that could be used. Or yeah, everyone's very supportive. I think like at the very beginning, when you first take something on that like eventually grows to become like a big part of your identity, everybody's kind of catching up to you in terms of the interest. So, now this is a big part. Wherever I go, I bring a yarn bomb with me to put up. And that's kind of the whole family, from like my parents to my husband and kids, everybody knows that that's part of the deal now. But, you know, very early on, they probably thought that was a little bit weird that I was bringing
Well,
my.
you didn't stop at that first tree. You went like into multiple countries to yarn bomb. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So in the first one that I did was in 2015. And then from 2016, for 13 months, beginning in 2016, my husband and I went backpacking through Southeast Asia. And so we went to Thailand and Malaysia, Laos, Cambodia, Vietnam. And I was knitting then, so I brought my knitting with me and decided that I would knit something for every place that we went to. And that was really nice because 13-month backpacking is amazing, but you know, we're in all of like your familiarity and comfort is gone. So it was like this very soothing, meditative thing that I could do. You know, like I think everyone appreciates the calming element of knitting or crochet. But it was
the
really
local
nice.
population appreciate you crocheting their towns?
I don't know. I'm sure that they did. You know, the things that I did, I gifted a few things. So the people that I gifted them to were definitely happy. So, but I don't have a sense of like the greater vibe of it all. Like I do here where, you know, I've been in the same small town now for 10 years. And pretty much everywhere I go now, people are like, what are you working on now?
So when did it change to crochet from knitting?
When we came back from that big trip, I switched over to crochet because I was looking to make bigger pieces and knitting is so time consuming. So I'm still probably putting the same amount of time into each piece, but I can make something bigger. And where we live in this small rural place, it's not such a dense, the spaces that I have are bigger. So like I'm looking to catch people's attention as they drive by because it's not a very, it's like more of a car centric kind of community. So yeah, I switched when we came back, I think it was 2018, switched over to crochet. And that's also when I had my son. So then again, time became of the essence. So crochet.
I mean, was it difficult for you to learn crochet?
I was intimidated, but I, for only until a couple months ago, have only used single crochet. So I did a couple early on. I had a blog, or I guess I still have a blog, but I don't do a lot on it anymore. And I got to interview London Kay, who is like the queen yarn bomber. And she told me she only uses single crochet. She gave me 3 pieces of advice, which were all awesome. Keep it simple. In that case, it was kind of like just stick to one stitch, have fun, and maybe I've forgotten the third piece. But anyways, yeah, I followed the advice of single crochet, and that's what I've done up until just a couple months ago. I started to take the Josie Damer's crochet freeform crochet course. So now I'm properly learning some new stitches.
Well, how do you think you changed as an artist, like from that first tree wrapping to where you're now?
That's a good question. I don't know. I'm like much more like my identity is shifted towards artist. I think that's like the major difference. I probably identified more as like a crafter at that point, and you know that's like a funny distinction that we have. But I see it more as artistry now, and it's like it's really shifted into a regular part of my daily routine, which is tied to well-being and contentment.
Right. What's your yarn stash looks like nowadays?
I think it's pretty impressive. I have a lot. I really like bright colors. I have all acrylic. And I guess like I've shifted. Initially, I was very into the chunky wool or yarn, and now it's like thinner. But of course, now that I've got a very impressive acrylic selection, I'm like, oh, I should get into wool because it feels so nice to work with real wool compared to acrylic. But acrylic works so well for yarn bombing, so
Right.
got my
Well, if somebody like sitting home and thinking, oh my God, I always wanted to do yarn bombing, where would you advise them to start from?
I think it's like something that's very well received. So it's like any fears that you have, if you're nervous about it, then you can like definitely yarn bomb your own property. So I guess my advice is from the like fear alleviation perspective, that like as long as you have like a good intention with it, then I think it will be well received. And you can put yarn on anything. I live on the East Coast, and so we have a lot of wood clapboarded buildings. So I use staples, and I always get permission. So I think get permission is a good place to start. And then, but I guess like go around your community with open eyes and see where you think that you could add a little bit of yarn color, and then get permission and then go for it.
So how do you come up with the ideas of what you should yarn bomb, what should be the image, how to make it? Like, do you have a diary of ideas? Is it
I
something?
do. Yeah. So when we went backpacking, that was I kept a diary because of course I had a backpack for 13 months, so I didn't have a lot. I didn't have a stash of yarn. So when we were there, I was able to like make small things with a very, very limited color range, maybe like 2 or 3 colors. And then I kept a little journal of ideas, bigger ideas that I could do later on. I kind of go through phases of interest. So for a while it was like immersive things. So like pieces that you feel drawn to and invited to stand within to get a selfie with. So for example, like a big Care Bear with a rainbow shooting out of its belly. I imagined that people would want to stand in that rainbow and pretend that they were being shot with good vibes. And this year, most recently, I did an outdoor art gallery that I got a grant from the Provincial Art Council, and we had a theme of Newfoundland. So that's the province that I live in. So working within that theme is kind of where the ideas come from. So I guess I try to come up with a theme, whether it's like officially for a grant or if I just find myself interested in something, I try and kind of narrow down what it is that I want to explore more.
Well, if permission was not a thing, like if you could yarn bomb anything, do you have
Well,
an idea of what you would want to attempt to do?
I'd like to, I'm like definitely interested in bigger, like I find myself, since I switched over to crochet, I find that I make things that are kind of within the same scale. So it's kind of me sized, 5 foot kind of stuff, 5 to 6 foot stuff. I would like to do something that like is like stop you in your tracks, can't help but notice this incredible thing. So building scale. But there's no particular buildings that I have in mind. But I'm interested in bigger, and I guess like exploring too paint and like kind of merging fiber with paint for street art.
Well, you mentioned at the beginning that there is an element of fear, that like it's something mischievous and like almost prohibited that you're doing and that you need to ask permission. Do you feel like you are in like you found this inner comfort to attempt anything at this point?
I definitely have become more bold, I guess. I mean, I'm in a very small town. It's 2,500 people. So like I kind of have rolling permission to use certain spots. So, and I guess like most people know who I am and this is what I like to do. So I probably do have a little bit of an expectation that people will continue to allow me, or like, you know, if there's a new space that I'd like to use, I think that I probably do a little bit have some expectation that they will give me permission for that.
Right. Is there like ever a message that you're trying to send through your fiber art, or is it all fun and games?
I have, when I first started, I was very influenced by Sarah Corbett. I might be mixing her name up. The Craftivist Collective, and she's a and I guess Betsy Greer. So they're both craftivists, and I did a couple like community projects where we wanted, like drew women together to make knitted starfish that we could post on our bridge downtown to draw attention to. There was like a boat that sank nearby 80 years ago and it was leaking oil. So early on, I guess like that's probably where like I took on the biggest, it was a big project. Then I took that on as like something important. And there was an element of activism to it, quiet activism, of course. For me, I like it, and I like the idea of being able to communicate whatever it is that you want to communicate. But I guess for me, I didn't want to carry on looking for something else to try and take action on. Do you know what I mean? Like, I know that I like to make, so I didn't want to have to constantly be looking for something to feel angry about to have to make into another kind of project. So it is a lot of fun and games. I moved here. I took a job as an occupational therapist, and part of, I think, what has made this so addictive for me is the idea that I think that art can make a happier and healthier community. So in bringing more art to the community, I am encouraging people to stop for a moment and just like have like a mindful moment of realizing what's happening precisely then.
Have you ever had like a really positive, touching feedback from anybody about your yarn bombing?
I have. A couple years ago, I went and installed something at like our local coffee shop, and the lady who had commissioned it, so she owned the store, but I'd never met her before, and she told me that during the pandemic, her child had some very serious health scare, or I guess health experience, where they were back and forth to medical appointments, and it had been a very long, drawn out affair. And they had finally been given like a clear bill of health, and it was their birthday. But yet it was the middle of the pandemic, so they weren't allowed to get together with anybody. And so they had chosen to come to our town and cruise around and look for yarn bombs. And that's how they, that was like a celebration of health and their birthday and all good things. And that meant a lot.
So a friend of mine went to this show where they like this company Tufts, they put this crochet butterfly, and they encourage everybody to come and knit a little spot and put it anywhere they wanted on the wings of the butterfly. Have you ever done anything where it was like a community event, yarn bombing?
Not like that. I mentioned the starfish. So I had everyone made their own starfish and then we installed them together, but I've never done anything like that where I make something and then leave it for people to contribute along the way. It's a good idea. I like it.
I thought it was brilliant, actually. Like, I saw it, I was like, that's like really interesting. It's a really good way to get community involved.
Yeah.
Into something. Have you ever tried teaching your husband or your kids to crochet?
I haven't. My son is 4 and my daughter is 2, so I haven't tried either of them. My husband, I have like suggested it, but he hasn't taken me up on it. I did teach a class. There was a girls' school that came through and I did a presentation for this spring. So there was 12 people and I've never taught crochet before. And so I did try to teach them single crochet. And it was a very intense experience.
Well, did you enjoy teaching? Do you think it's something you see yourself doing in the future?
It's fun. It's definitely fun because I mean, the options are so endless, right? The potential is endless, especially with single crochet. It's so simple, and you can really do so much with it. So I definitely did enjoy it, and it's fun. The girls that I taught, I think, were 14. So it's cool to think that they're all going to go off on their own yarn adventures, and that I could play a little role in that.
Well, what's your like ambition about where you see yourself going with this? Like, do you have a plan, or is it all the time?
I got no plan. I'm following London's advice of just like keep going, keep having fun, and trust that good things will happen. And like that has worked really nicely for me so far. I've managed to get some grants and I've gotten some commissions. I guess like ultimately I would love to work with brands and have this be like more of a income generating piece of my life. But I guess like I don't know where it's gonna go.
I'm afraid that like if you're gonna turn it into business, right, and if it's gonna be the income generated thing, you're gonna lose your artistic freedom.
That's always the fear, isn't it? That's the challenge. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is to that. But yes, I think that is like a legitimate concern. And I guess that's the challenge that everybody faces in choosing to make the shift from a hobby to a profession, right? That you risk losing a hobby and turning it from something that's very fun into something that's stressful and challenging.
I mean, do you ever stress over your installations?
With the installation I did this summer, I had invited international artists to submit, and the idea was there was going to be 5 installations. 4, I would do 1, and then 4 would come from people around the world. And one of the people that I invited said that she wasn't able to do it in the end. So I ended up doing 2 pieces for it, and it was just like time crunched. So in looking back, I don't think it's the second piece is my best work. And there is an element of stress that's tied to it coming from a grant. And, you know, I got a grant, so I want to make sure to make this big and wonderful. And yeah, so there was an element of stress.
Well, how critical are you usually to your own work? Like when you finish something, because first of all, like, is it hard for you to say, okay, I'm done, like this is enough, it's finished? And secondly, like, are you looking at it critically? Like, are you seeing mistakes? Are you seeing places for improvement? Or are you usually satisfied with overall look?
I'm pretty satisfied, and I think that like that's a benefit of it going out for a yarn bomb. Because there's no pressure to it. It's simply something that I want to make and then put out. And I know that it's going to be weathered and there is a risk of somebody stealing it. So I'm not very fussy in that regard. If it's something that somebody has asked me to make, then I'm definitely more critical, and I have a harder time knowing that what I've done is enough, because there's not a lot of yarn bombers out there. So if somebody commissions me to do something, I feel very honored by that, and I want to blow their minds, you know, and that's difficult.
Well, I ask this question every once in a while, but like if 100 years from now somebody would pick a piece of yours and put it in the museum, which piece would you want it to be?
So, good question. I think my leg's falling asleep now. The one I think I have only the one piece that comes to mind is I did a Popeye kind of bust. So like Popeye from here up, and I was really happy with it. And I brought it to Hamilton and it got stolen. So that's like
No.
it's the piece that got away. So everything else I've been able to put up, take down, put up again, and see it kind of get weathered and get old. But Popeye disappeared. So, and I think it was really good, and that's probably why it disappeared. But I think
how long can they, like, usually, assuming nobody steals your piece, right? How long can they survive the elements?
I put everything up for pretty much like the summer. So I put things up all year long. But I try to put things up and then take it down so that I can then put tons of stuff out in the summertime. And when it goes up in the summertime, I'll put it up for like 3 months. And then, so I have a Homer Simpson that I made 4 years ago, excuse me. And it's now probably on its 12th month, but it's gone up and come down and gone up. So things last pretty well, but they definitely get faded. So like it's not quite as like fresh and vibrant after the first 3 months.
Do you ever get artistic block, like when you don't know what to make next, when you don't out of ideas?
I don't really, I don't think. If I don't think that I do. I mean, I must, but it doesn't take long before something else is coming up. Do you?
I do sometimes. I
Yeah.
mean, usually like few days, but like I'm going through periods of time, especially like after a really large, complicated project. It's sort of like reading a book series or watching TV series when you mentally still there with the characters and like in that moment. So it's hard for me to snap out and decide, okay, next I'm gonna do this. So there are times when I'm like sick and tired of already that project and I'm ready to start something else. But then there are definitely times when I'm still sort of mourning the end of the, some big project.
Because it's very exciting to start a new project and exciting to finish a project. And it can take a little bit, you can need a little bit of energy and enthusiasm to kind of launch back into something, right?
Well, do you ever lose the enthusiasm? Do you ever question yourself, like, why am I doing this? Why not sit home and make myself a cute little crochet top or something better? Like,
Um, I guess sometimes I do think it's like a little bit of a strange hobby. Um, and you know, there's like elements of doubt that arise because, I'm making something and then I put it out and I see that it's getting destroyed. So it's not something that in 100 years can be in a museum, or even after 3 months can be realistically go in a museum because it gets worn away. Um, but I guess the heart wants what the heart wants. It's hard to say. It's hard to like kind of be logical about what it is like about it that I like. I think I'm like fascinated by crochet and like fiber art in general. And the more that I do with it, the more I find it interesting because, first it's just being able to make public art that communicates to the community. And then it's like trying to make art that people want to take a picture with and share with their friends. And then it's I guess this summer I guess I'm finding new ways to be interested by it, yarn bombing in general. And this year, I wanted to invite the international artists because I kind of want to spotlight yarn bombing and how cool it is and how there's like people have different styles of yarn bombing and what you can do with it and what you can do with crochet. And now with Josie Damer's course, I can experiment with crochet kind of even more. So,
well, when I'm thinking about her art, right, it's more over something I would put on the wall of my house, right? It's something that's like an art piece that can easily go to museum. It's not the yarn bombing.
absolutely.
Did that influence you anyhow? Do you and the artists that have similar style that I've interviewed, they all sort of like doing these portraits, crochet portraits that sort of like meant to substitute the painted portrait, right? Like, are you thinking of going that way at some point?
I mean, I guess I am. To me, I see it as like a natural evolution of yarn bombing outside to yarn bombing inside. um, the Rhianne Evans is one of the women that I invited, and she's the one who suggested or kind of turned me on to Josie Damer's course. And I was so intrigued by the style, the style of crochet that looks like it's been painted. It's so fine and detailed and tight and nice. And I guess, yeah, it just excites me to see another direction that I could take with yarn.
Is it like difficult for you to follow direction of another artist where you're used to doing whatever you want to do whenever you want to
do? Well, the like major message that's communicated with the freeform crochet course is that this is freeform crochet. Whatever you want to do, if you want to do, I'm doing these 2 stitches, but if you want to do these different types of stitches. So I think that's what I find very attractive is that it's she's like showing a technique and you can follow her direction or you cannot, but she's showing a technique so that you can apply it however you want to.
Well, did you find it's like something specifically difficult to replicate? Like when you're doing portraiture, like free form crochet portraits, right? Is there some part of the face or animal that's very difficult to make look realistic?
Yeah, the eyes, and that's the beginning. So the eyes are really difficult. And I mean, like you say, that stuff really does look like fine art, painting and fine art. It's real. It's impressive. It's amazing. And I'm been working with a very different freeform crochet style. So it's challenging because it's very detail oriented. not in terms of following a pattern, but just looking at it and being content with the shape being the shape that you want it to. So I guess I do find that challenging that, they're showing how to do something, and you can choose not to do that. But like, if you really do want to replicate it so that you know that you can do it the way that she's showing, then it's not hard.
And I'm thinking about like your story, right? So you went from traditional knitting to knitted yarn bombing to crochet to now portraiture crochet. Do you see yourself evolving into something completely else as far as fiber arts go? Like, do you see yourself not doing yarn bombing and doing something completely else?
I don't know. I can see that direction, because it's my business model is not much of a business model, like I make yarn bombs and then I put them out for free, and I do that and I do that and I do that, and then sometimes I apply for grants and sometimes I get awarded commissions, but for the most part I'm making and giving it away. So if I'm going to transition to this being a career, then I need to scale back. I need to probably balance out the work for money element.
Does that stress you out?
What's that?
Does that stress you out?
Yeah, I guess that part does stress me out because in switching anything to a business, then you have to think of it as a business as opposed to think about it just as something that you do for fun and you don't care. It's not about making money. It's about having fun, right?
What are you working on right now? Like, what's the latest for yarn bombing?
I am working on eyes. So again, working on this, the very beginning of the second course of Josie Dammers. So I've been working on eyes, and there's an old payphone downtown here that I might go stick an eye on this afternoon. Yeah, and I'm going to Hamilton shortly, so I'm going to have to come up with something to bring there. So yeah.
I want to see those pictures. What's your relationship with social media? Like, do you meet people who inspire you there? Do you build your future customer base? Like, how do you see it?
I very much see, so I guess I use Instagram and Twitter. I'm not on Facebook. I very much see Instagram as like a space for inspiration and to share my art. And I mean, it's amazing in terms of looking at, you plug into things and being inspired of people all over the world who are doing street art and fiber art and yarn bombing and weaving, and it's amazing. So I find it to be a very inspiring place, and I use it strictly as a art sharing platform.
Are you ever like stressed with the algorithm and how it's treating you and the amount of views you get and likes you get?
I don't, not really. I mean, I would like to see a more consistent uptick in engagement. But at the same time, like, it seems like such a mystery. It seems like, people are like regularly talking about what a mystery the algorithm is. So it's like, I guess I use it as a space to plug in to see, to be inspired by other people, to like connect with other fiber artists and artists around the world, because like I mentioned earlier, there's not a lot of street art in my community. So it's very exciting to see what everyone is doing. And it's a space of fun for me. So I, again, try to keep it fun.
Guys, go follow. I'll put the information about all your social media and how they can find you in the description of this video. So please click that follow button over there.
Perfect.
Well, thank you so much for being my guest today, Nina. I loved getting to know your process and understanding what inspires you. And
thanks, Arena. You're coming at me with the heavy questions.
I'm not taking it easy on anybody.
No, it's cool. It's cool. Thank you.